I'd never had that experience in all of my years gardening, but it kind of took sitting down and tweaking the actual planting dates. I think was the biggest part because even if I hadn't fed heavily, I still would have gotten broccoli, but just not as big. So that was important to me. But then I was like, well, if I'm already doing this, let me take it a step further. And then I just kind of combined the two, and it worked out swimmingly well.
Yeah, I think you're racing against the clock, specifically for broccoli, which we know it's a heat sensitive vegetable, right? It's a heat
Yeah.
sensitive plant. So for you, when you talk about planting early, it isn't just for planting early sake, right? You're trying to get those crops in early, you're feeding heavy. Obviously you want it to produce faster, you want it to produce a bigger head of broccoli, but you want it to produce before it bolts, before that heat sets in. And that's about timing in part. Now your weather conditions also allow you to, for those heads to produce as well. Because I mean, you could plant right now, and if the weather isn't ideal, it doesn't matter how much you're fertilizing if you don't have kind of the climate for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been accused on YouTube a few times of, because my big thing is, I don't think gardeners are really planting early enough, especially for some things. So it's one of those things where I've been accused of like, hey, you're just doing this for show. And it's like, no, absolutely not. This is the art of finding out your timing in your area.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it seemed crazy to me to be planting so early. I mean, I was out there and I was like, man, I was watching the weather. I remember, and it was going to be, we usually get about a 2 week real cold snap in um, mid January, and then February can go either way. And I was watching the weather and I was like, look, it's go time. And we ran out there and we did it. And I was prepared to do whatever it took. And I didn't even have to cover them. I was surprised. But once we got past that cold snap, and there's a lot of things that happen at that time of year. So we were about a month after the winter solstice. So the sun was getting higher, which means the garden was getting more sun. And from that point on, the garden gets a lot easier because the sun's getting higher and higher and higher.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to go through and really maximize that period of time. And all the cards fell into place right there. So it worked out
Yeah.
good. Now the question is, can I do it 2 years in a row? That's the
Yeah.
question. It's like one year you're like, okay, I got a little lucky, I'm good. But then the second year is like, that's so I need to, my goal this year, and this isn't, I'm not encroaching on my gardening goals for next year though, but my goal for my broccoli is I would like to hit about the 75% mark. 100% is
Mhm.
great, but it's a little unrealistic to be like, I want 100%. But I think 75% is doable if we stay on the same path.
Yeah. Well, when you think about like the percentage that you're able to actually harvest, it's notable because this is one of those single producing crops, right? We know
Yeah.
about the side shoots. We know y'all love the side shoots, but this is one that you're looking for a single head as the win, right? And so once you get that and you can consistently get that plant over plant, we go into this expecting some level of loss, right? And to get 100% is pretty cool. I think one of the things, and this is where knowing your growing area really matters. So I can't plant anything just in open soil in January. My soil is just getting good and frozen by then. But I could still take from that. I could take broccoli because I run into broccoli bolting when it gets to, closer to the end of spring. So how early can I plant my broccoli when I can actually work the soil? Like that's because I'm facing the same challenge when it comes to your racing against the clock. My calendar is just slightly shifted compared to
Yeah.
yours.
Well, and the
Right,
other thing too is your temperatures stay cooler longer. So
Mhm,
you have a more
mhm.
forgiving spring. Now we're the
Yeah.
opposite in the fall where we have more forgiving temperatures, but we have a lack of sunlight. So
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
that aspect of it as well. Um,
Well, good on you.
yeah, yeah, it was definitely a win. So I'll take it.
Oh shoot, I'm up next. Look
Yeah,
at
not unless Leonard's
I got
got one
all
for us, and I don't see
yeah, I got
Leonard.
I got all wrapped up in the broccoli of it all. So I hinted at like a thing. So onions, and this is a win because this is something I've challenged myself to do. So, to level set, onions are one of the least expensive things that you can get from the grocery store, even organic onions, right? But onions are one of the things that you use in so many applications, so many dishes, so many, meals that you're preparing, right? And onions are also something that stays in the garden quite a long time. So, if I look at my calendar, it said that I can plant onions as early as mid, like maybe the third week in March, right? And so by that count, I'm harvesting them somewhere around the early part of August. That's a long time for a single crop to be in your garden. So I kind of had to do the dance this year of how many do I want to grow? Now, I just started as many as I thought made sense. I probably used like half of the packet of onions. So that's a part of the beginning of the win, right? The starting them from seed. I tried it last year. They died in the basement before they even made it outside. I tried it this year, stayed committed to it, had beautiful transplants ready to go outside. Now we're keeping it real because I actually didn't plant them in that kind of third week of March like I should have. And I think that had an impact down the road. So got them planted, I'm going to say about in April, and I did my, initial prior to putting them into the ground, I fertilized. And then I did a fair of fertilizing throughout the season. I kept the area pretty well weeded and I dedicated a space to the onions. And that's something that I don't do as much as I really want to, and I've realized I should. Really, if you have some crop that you're really interested in winning with, you should actually be dedicating some space to that. So I had a whole bed of onions, and then I had maybe one row in the front yard, but a whole bed of onions in the backyard. And I harvested them in, see, I think maybe the middle to end of August. And I still have onions as of this recording, besides the one that
Yeah.
was smelling up my kitchen last night. But they kept well. The size was small, so it's more like larger than golf ball size, but not quite base or yeah, baseball size. So somewhere in between.